Civil war, civil unrest, and the possibility of world war. Let's talk about it. Good afternoon, I'm Toby, and this is Lapis 210. Today we're going to talk about something that's been in the forefront of the media. The possibilities of civil war, the possibilities of world war, and all the civil unrest that comes with it. How does this impact you, the average person in society? We know how these things can impact law enforcement and military, how they impact governments. But as a civilian, it's easy for us to speculate, easy for us to make assumptions, and it's just assume the worst. But in reality, we should be wary, but take a rational, long-lasting approach to this. When I say long-lasting, meaning I don't have to jump in and push forward with expensive purchases all up front, trying to accumulate all the resources and equipment that I need or training. By and large, we need to take this bit by bit, bite by bite, and process what we think is going to happen versus what we speculate might happen. And there's a difference between thinking about something and over-speculating. When we think about something and we're rationalizing it, we're using a cognizant thought process to truly break down what's happening, we can make informed, deductive, and inductive decisions. But if we're just going to speculate, we can get into these wild fantasies of zombie apocalypse, alien invasion, or whatnot. No, we don't need to do that. What we need to do is focus on reality, use deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning, and figure out what we have. In terms of deductive reasoning, we look at the evidence. Let's say I have an object, it's red, it's fruit, it's shaped like an apple, I can assume it's an apple, right? And with inductive reasoning, we can look at something and say, okay, I have the apple, so what makes this to be an apple? We can say, well, if this is supposed to be an apple, it should be red. It should be round and fruit-like, and it should be consumable. So we're going to take the same approach. I call concept and application, right? We're going to take a concept application. Concept, what could be the possible threat? And the application, how do I prepare for that threat? So let's think about realistic threats. When I talk about realistic threats, we could look at things such as unchecked immigration. When you have millions of people crossing into a country that don't share the same values as the country as a whole, right? Those social contracts we have, it leads to instability, it leads to immorality. And I say immorality, we're talking not having the same social values. Same thing with political ideologies. Some political ideologies are caustic, they don't work, and they lead to destabilization, and they have historically led to destabilization. Those two are important. When we look at unchecked spending, partially what drove the Soviet Union to collapse was unchecked spending. They financially collapsed, and all the satellite countries collapsed. And all of the ones that were able to shift to a Western style of governance, right? Democracy-based governance. Were they able to survive and reclaim their freedom, but also reclaim their stability? So going back to concept and application, what is our concept? Our concept is looking at the current state of affairs. When we look at civil unrest and civil destabilization, like the Ukraine, Venezuelan, South African models, all right, where you look at countries that have exhausted their resources, like China, these lead to civil unrest and lead to greater tyranny or foreign invasion. But when you also look domestically, you look at the political instability and what certain organizations are doing to destabilize society and create unrest and create fear, we have to look at those concepts and how they affect you and your loved ones and your ability to maintain your safety and, in some cases, your own sanity. So consider the concept. The concept will be, what are the real threats? Well, we could say a grid down experience, right? The grid has been collapsed on a minute scale, but if we have a major grid down situation where the scenario is a major part of the electrical grid for America goes down, or as in here in Texas, it goes down, how does that impact me here locally? Okay, what steps can I take to prioritize my safety and my survival? If we look at unchecked spending and a financial collapse, okay, we look at the Venezuelan model. That's a great example of that. When there's a complete financial collapse, you have a complete detachment from the people and their governance. Governments do what governments do. They'll clamp down, they'll implement stricter guidance, they'll suspend rights, which they can't do. And it leads to a dystopian outcome, and it never ends well for the people. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't end well for the governments either. So consider those things and really look at that particular concept. What is the realistic concept of what's going to happen to us here, say, in America? Or if you're a viewer from another country, how does that impact you where you're at? The application, how do we prepare for that then? If we've delineated what the problem is, how do we apply for that, for the application? So I have a list and a couple things that I call the P's, if you will, okay? We're going to prepare by projecting, planning, prioritizing, preparing that, and then protecting what we have. So how do we project? Project is that concept. We're going to project what we perceive the threat to be. What is our perceived threat? I personally see unchecked immigration, overspending, and a destabilization of our social contracts and morality, all leading to the same end states that you saw with Rome, you see with Venezuela, you see in South Africa, you see even in Ukraine to some degree. Ukraine already had its own issues. They were teetering, they were hanging on by a thread. So when you see these systems completely collapsing, we had to start making that projection, okay? And that falls more than the concept, okay? Another part of that concept then, okay, is going to be the planning for that. If I think unchecked spending is going to be an issue, or let's say I think zombies, somehow I think zombies are going to be the issue, then I have to plan for the zombie apocalypse, okay? And I make my preparations based around that planning. That's my first and foremost, okay? Once we've done that, then we use that part of that concepting to prioritize. What are the things I need to prioritize for that planning? All right, I'm not worried about getting new wheels and a new paint job in my car if I'm worried about a zombie apocalypse. I might be looking at, okay, maybe I need a more of an off-grid vehicle. Again, I'm not saying a zombie apocalypse is going to happen. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. But there are some valid ideas that come with that fun thought process that can be applied to real life. Right? Self-sufficiency and protection run the gambit in terms of your ability to survive and hopefully thrive in those unstable environments. So once we've done all that, now you have to begin the application, and that comes with preparing. Preparing means getting the training. Training being the key most portion. I can have very little, and if I'm well trained and I know how to use what I have and I can improvise and I can adapt, then my chances of survival increase significantly. My ability to provide for my loved ones and protect my property greatly increases. So preparing, all right, making those preparations is critical. Training, accumulating food, water, resources, and in some cases weapons, okay? And the other protective equipment you would need, let's say body armor, helmets. I know it can get extravagant, and it can be overwhelming for the individual trying to do all that at once. You have to take it bit by bit. Start off first with just what do I need right now to protect myself in my home, let's say from an intruder. And that's a great place to start. How do I feed myself for 2 weeks if the grid goes down? Well, look at the grid. Let's say the grid goes down temporarily, let's say due to weather, right? And we see this every year with hurricane season or in harsh winters. Okay, making sure I have some firewood or things that I need to keep me warm. Space heaters. Well, if I get a space heater, making sure I have a way to vent out the gases to ensure that I don't become hypoxic and choke and die in my sleep from the overuse of emissions from those use of space heaters. Making sure I have food and clean water. I have what toiletries I need to keep myself clean. Again, infection and exposure being the two ways that people die the most in these destabilized situations that we've seen historically and globally. Okay, and at the end, protect yourself. Make sure you have an ability to protect the assets that you have, protect your family and yourself. Without that, it's all for nothing. I can do all the work in the world and have all these great assets and resources at my disposal, but if I can't defend it and keep it, it does me no good. What is yours is yours. One of the very tenets of being a free society is the ability to own private property. And private property isn't just the land that you sit on, it's also the stuff that you own. That's all your private property. It's your property, so you need to protect that. Again, back into the application process of this, again, arm yourself and protect yourself. Now, when I say protect yourself, it doesn't just mean, okay, I'm going to use weapons, if I will, okay, mine being a weapon as well, to defend myself. It's also having the proper protective equipment, personal protective equipment, or PPE. PPE can be masks, and I'm not advocating masks for viruses because they're virtually useless with a virus, but I am talking about the ability to protect yourself from contaminants, right? A mask could stop toxic fumes and chemicals, asbestos, pollution, okay? That's a PPE. Body armor is a PPE, whether that's soft body armor or hard plates, rifle-rated plates, that is PPE. A bump helmet is something as simple as a hard hat. It can protect you from objects that are being thrown at you, or even in some cases shot at you, right? Maybe it's someone's launching stuff, cans or bricks, frozen water bottles, water bottles filled with concrete. If those hit you in the head, they will kill you or potentially kill you, right? Or cause serious harm or damage. So having the equipment to protect yourself and your family is going to be critical. So it's not just firearms or weapons, okay? It's also going to be the equipment that you put on yourself or on your family members, or things you do to fortify the position that you're in, whether it's your home or an RV, your car, wherever you're at. Fortifying yourself protects yourself. It protects your loved ones. It protects the stuff that you have, your supplies, your equipment, your food, all the essentials you need to survive a situation where things have become destabilized and you're on your own, at least for a short time. Also, make alliances. Make sure that you are not just the island. You're not just a man or woman by yourself. If you have the right skill set, maybe being by yourself might be advantageous, particularly if you have no one that you care about. That's fine. That gives you mobility, right? It minimizes your signature being visual and audio, okay? It might be hard to find you, might be hard to hear you because you're moving by yourself. You can pick and choose exactly what you're doing based on your own body type, your own health, your own fitness level, and your own experience and training. You start doing larger groups, it greatly magnifies that signature, but with larger groups comes greater security, greater assets, increased and combined assets of supplies, and increased security. Increased security allows you the ability to protect yourselves more advantageously, allows you to sleep while one person's up, or if you have a group, multiple people can be up while multiple people are sleeping. Yes, there are cons. There's never a free lunch, right? With anything, there are cons that come with the pros. Understand that, but make those alliances. Train with people that you can learn to trust, all right? Work with people who have experiences that you don't have training that you don't have, or abilities in terms of education. Someone might be an electrician, an auto mechanic, a nurse, a doctor, okay? Those are important critical skills. Someone who has plumbing or well experience, your ability to gain access to water. Fresh water is going to be critical. You can only go so long without water. I think it's 3 or 4 days without any water whatsoever. You can go up to what they say 3 weeks without food, and you're going to be hurting. I've been in that situation where food was greatly restricted, if at all, for a few days. And I can tell you, moving a few hundred meters was harsh and taxing. So having a group means the increased ability to gain resources or retain those resources, gain security and retain security. So consider that, if you will. Finally, keep calm. Keep a rational mind. We can always easily invent scenarios, buy into whatever the media is. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, or center. There's all kinds of speculation out there. Sifting through that is difficult in its own right. I employ common sense. I look at history, I look at the current events, what's happening now, what do I see taking place now, and how do I project for that? How do I plan for that? By projecting and making an assertive plan, I can start preparing for that plan, and then I can start taking action, okay? Keep calm, keep rational. Use your deductive and inductive reasoning. Remain objective and think rationally. Governments, even our own, in the end, don't care about you individually. They care about maintaining civility and power. Civility grants them access to maintaining their power. Their power base is everything. And while I love my country, okay, I understand full well, like our founding fathers did, that governments are always inherently evil and always inherently seek more power. I'm not saying the U.S. is evil. I'm not saying it's good. I'm simply saying that even our own founding fathers, as they set up our Republican form of government, all right, our constitutional republic, they understood that government always seeks more government. So let's be rational human beings. Let's be prepared citizens. Let's think ahead. Let's project and make solid plans. And then we can implement those plans to ensure our own security. Because security and your safety starts with you. All right? Those that would give up essential liberty for limited security deserve neither security or liberty. And with that, from the bottom up, take in your environment, and from the top down, make sound decisions. Have a good evening.